been considered Christian. I definitely was not Christian when we first met.
I would have still considered myself Catholic at that time, just because that's how I was born and raised.
On paper, this guy that I had went on a date with was that, like, checked the on paper boxes with a bunch of red flags also that my brain was ignoring. And so the woman I was telling this story to is like, oh, the devil sent you one last temptation. I had to make the choice of, am I going to take responsibility for myself and feel met in this partnership and do the work to have the intimacy I want in this relationship, or not? Because it's going to be every relationship that is like that. And so
welcome to episode 1 of Made New. I am super excited to have y'all here. My name is Michael Kelly, and this is my beautiful wife, Samantha Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
You gotta talk a little bit. We wanted to do something a little bit unique for these first 2 episodes and just kind of cover our story, how God has, came into our life, how our relationship just kind of like exponentially skipped a whole bunch of steps, and we'll get into it. So make sure you watch until the end because this episode is going to be lit. So, babe, the first question I have for you is, how did you experience early dating? Like when we first met, Hinge profiles, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think it's important to like preface this conversation for those of us who haven't watched the whole, for those of you guys listening who haven't watched the whole journey of our relationship, like some of our friends and things like that, that we were not, I don't know if we would have been considered Christian. I definitely was not Christian when we first met. What about you? Would you have considered yourself that?
I would have still considered myself Catholic at that time, just because that's how I was born and raised, which we'll talk about that in the next episode. But yeah, I lost my faith for a long time, and I was kind of in limbo when we first met, where kind of like you, I was diving deep into like the woo-woo spirituality instead of God.
Yeah. So I feel like that's an important thing to mention here at the beginning, because when we first met, we were in a very different place. And, these first couple of episodes, we wanted to showcase, what God has done through our relationship in a very fast pace. So when we first met, I remember I had just actually received a healing session from a shaman that I was training under at the time. And I'm sure that's a story we'll tell much later date. I have a episode on my personal podcast about that. But I had literally just received a healing session. I was house sitting for a family member, and I was like, I wasn't on any dating apps at the time. I wasn't really like dating anyone at the time either. And I was like, I'm going to download Hinge because, I was house sitting. I was like, I kind of want to go out tonight, go get dinner or something, and just like, have a nice time. And so I downloaded Hinge, and right when Michael and we literally matched within hours of me downloading it. And I just like was done talking to anyone else right when we matched. And so I knew that I was going to have a night to myself. So I went out. I just love to see live music. So I went out, saw live music, got some ramen at this place in Tampa. And we were literally, it was like we were on a date, basically. We were texting and messaging the whole night, like kind of obsessively. And I just remember I was on my phone the whole time. People were probably like, what is this girl doing? And from there, we just hit it off. And I think it took weeks, maybe 2 weeks before we actually officially met. And we physically met on June 19th in, what year was it? 2021?
2021.
Yeah.
2021.
And we went on a date in St. Pete, and, Mike was so awkward at first. But then we got to talking throughout the night, and it just ended up being a wonderful night. And so when you ask about early dating, I remember a lot of like you coming up to visit, and I remember right when we were early dating too that I told my friends, I remember sitting on the couch with two of my girlfriends saying, I wouldn't be surprised if in 6 months, 6 months after we met, if in 6 months we just moved to Italy and eloped, like, and just got married. And marriage, kids, none of that was like in my vision for my life or on my radar even at all. And so that was like a shocking statement from me. It's almost as if my soul, my body knew, this is the kind of man that you can partner with for your life. This is the kind of man that you can rely on. This is the kind of man you're meant to be with. And, here we are.
Was it 4 years later?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
4 years later. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So when we initially first met, how long was it before you moved in? Was it two
Yeah,
months?
that's such a good question. So we met in June and I moved in August.
August,
June,
June,
July.
July.
Like two to
Yeah.
three, I think it was like 3 months because it was like mid-August. And so my lease was ending. I lived with roommates at the time. And before I met Mike, I had plans to just kind of like travel. Honestly, I just kind of wanted to go to Colorado and to travel again. And we met, and it was kind of like my lease was ending. Do I get my own place, which would have been so expensive? Do I move in with my parents or my mom? Or do I move in with you? And there was this question, getting my own place was out of the picture. First of all, we would be at one of each other's houses the whole time, anyways,
Yeah.
right? And so we just decided to kind of go all in and say, let's F around and find out. Like,
But she was still 1 foot in on the relationship for, I'd say, the next 6 or 7 months around there,
no, the
or
next
till end of
December.
December. End of
Yeah,
December.
I was. So like I said, like,
It was painful.
I was at a different time in my life. And like I said, like, relationship, commitment, those things weren't really on my radar. Like, and so it was like a huge adjustment for me to see myself committed with someone, moving in some ways starting a life together. And so that was like the caterpillar going into the cocoon, painful process. And so I ended up in October going out of town to Oregon for an entire month. And that was my period of like, is this a right I don't know if you do this. I think you did though. It was my period of like, is this the right relationship for me? Like, do I want this? Do I not? And so when Mike says I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, very much so my heart was like wrestling with, it wasn't even my heart. It was like my old ways wrestling with what was God was calling me to do. Like my patterns trying to fight my soul's path. And so that dying process, that dying to myself, if you will, was painful for me, but more so painful for you, I would say.
Oh yeah, it was extremely painful because I was fully committed to her. I chose her every single morning. But waking up in the morning knowing that the person you chose or you're choosing to like be with and want to spend the rest of your life with isn't sure if you're the one that she wants to spend the rest of her life with, and you're just like, you don't know when she's going to end it, you don't know when she's going to be like, okay, it's time for me to go travel. You don't know if she's going to meet somebody when she's traveling and they have like the same nomad kind of lifestyle that she
That I
wanted,
thought
and
I wanted.
yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Well, I think what's important about that, though, for all the psychologically adept people here, you can analyze our attachment styles at that time if you want to. But I don't like to go too deep into that because God has a plan in all of that, right? And if Michael wasn't so I claim you and consistent in that, I would have never been able to like lean in. I would have never been able Like, because I imagine if you would have pulled away or like whatever, I would have been just like, all right, whatever, like, and just like skipped over it. But the fact that you skipped over what I felt in my heart is what I
Yeah.
mean by that. And like the fact that you held such a safe, like, no, like you're my person, like, I want this, it almost allowed my system to like relax and surrender to your pursuit and commitment to our life together. And from day one, I remember like us standing in the doorway of my old house in Clearwater saying like, I claim you, and me being like, okay, like, yeah, that sounds fun, let's let's go with that. And we did. And we kept going with that, with every step that God was guiding us, and I just really love that.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room.
It's only an elephant in the room for us.
I know.
Never.
But in December of the year that we started dating and meeting, there was a lot of things that happened. It was like 3 or 4 days before my birthday. And for somebody that wasn't trying to get, I guess you could say, caught, you kind of made a lot of very on smart decisions during that time.
No, I think you have the wrong perception of that, because okay, so let's just talk about what happened. We don't have to be awkward about it. It's over with.
Yeah.
Like, so I had gone to an event, a kirtan event, which is like,
Praising other gods and
okay, this is a pastime of my life. Let's get over it. Kirtan event is like singing spiritual songs, typically in like Sanskrit or things like that, and also in English. And I sat down and someone sat next to me and we were talking, and long story short, we ended up going on a date the next day. And I had lied to Michael about it and said I'm going to meet up with a friend. And um, we met up in a public place that all of Michael's friends are.
yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, but let's be clear, like, there was no, like, you found out from me before anyone else. Like, I came home and within an hour or so immediately told you what happened, and nothing happened on the date, but um that was like a pivotal moment in our early relationship.
Oh yeah, because I don't know what it was. I would call it God, because any other person or any other relationship that I have ever been in, I would have put both my middle fingers up and just completely shut that person out. Would have, because I was on the lease of the apartment, I would have
Kicked
kicked her
me out.
out, probably threw her stuff over the railing, and just let
Toxic.
some toxic. I was just about to say my old toxic self kind of shine. But in that moment, something told me that I needed to stay. I needed to work through this, because if I don't work through it, then this pattern is going to continue to happen with every relationship that I get into, which is just how everything worked for the next couple of months, which was really weird because normally you'd think that somebody would have a bunch of trust issues, that they wouldn't allow that person to like go out with friends and like all this other stuff, because that's how I would have been back before God saved me, we could say. And I wasn't really like that. I still, oddly enough, trusted her with my heart. I trusted her with my life. And yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, because on paper, right? Like, but I think that moment didn't show my character moving forward. It was almost like a purge of my old character, almost like the last temptation. And, I was telling this story to a Christian woman, and I was telling her because at the time, the reason I went on the date is I was fighting with what I thought I wanted in a partner versus, what my soul can actually rest in and thrive in and what God wants me to have, which ends up being what my soul has actually really wanted. And so I was wrestling with that, and I was still stuck in my head of wanting this like more spiritual or like, and it's funny because our relationship has now become like very spiritual through time. And so I was stuck in my head of wanting like this like spiritual whatever guy that goes to kirtan, right? Like, gosh, if I would have gone down that path. And so on paper, this guy that I had went on a date with was that, like, checked the on paper boxes with a bunch of red flags also that my brain was ignoring. And so the woman I was telling this story to is like, oh, the devil sent you one last temptation.
Which is, I think, wild because what did he do?
Like, I don't really recall too much. Like,
I
again, it was
thought it
just
was like a coach for men who were cheated on or something.
oh, he like researched things like that. He wasn't, I don't think he was a coach or anything. I
Okay.
don't want to talk too much about him
Yeah.
because he's like whatever, but like, yeah, that was like an odd moment of he was talking about how he's been cheated on and like why do women cheat on their partners, and I'm just sitting there like frozen in time. But ultimately, like, came home. I do feel like that was like a last temptation for me of like faith and obedience, really, because God was really calling me to be obedient to partnership and, saying yes to our relationship. And after that, what's funny is it was almost like completely gone. Like, whereas in past relationships, maybe I was always looking on the greener, like for something better. After that last experience, zero desire. It's like cut entirely out of me. I learned the lesson. The lesson has been learned. Like, it's gone. Like, it's just not a thing I deal with anymore from that moment, from making that choice of, the same way Michael had to make a choice of, do I stay or
Should I
not?
stay or should I go now?
Exactly. I had to make the choice of, am I going to take responsibility for myself and like feel met in this partnership and do the work to have the intimacy I want in this relationship or not? Because it's going to be every relationship that is like that. And so that's a foundation for a lot of my personal work with women now too.
Yeah, now I want to fast forward
Do it.
not very long because it was probably
A month is a month later.
a month later.
Jesus.
A month later, you were you were hosting a spiritual retreat
In North
in
Carolina.
North Carolina. And I just had this feeling where I was just like, I want to have a baby with this woman. I don't know why. She just did all this stuff a month ago that kind of broke my heart, but something somewhere is telling me that I want to have a baby with this woman. And on her way home,
No, it was before that.
it was before that.
Yeah. So I was laying in bed at the retreat home that the retreat was hosted in, and two things happened. One night, I was laying there like half awake, like almost like in a meditative state, half awake, and that limbo between being awake and not, like that one. And I had this random, almost like feeling, and like, I don't want to call it like a download, but that's kind of what it felt like, of like dropped into my body and mind images of if you've seen the science videos of like a bunch of cells dividing and like how babies are grown, like a bunch of cells dividing, and this like physical feeling of what it meant to carry a baby in your body. It's very difficult to describe, but it was that like image of a sciencey image of a baby growing and this feeling of this is what it's like to carry a baby. And then I think I didn't say anything to Mike. And then the next night I had this dream where it was, you know how dreams are, they're weird. We were in a lake, there were alligators. I was with my whole family boating and swimming, and it was just so weird. And I found a baby in the lake, and I picked it up and said, yep, this will be mine, and I will take care of it. And I think then I called you the next night, and we talked about it while we were still in the retreat home.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember laying in that bed, and I called you about it, and I don't know who said it first. I think, oh, I do remember. You made a joke or something about having a baby, and I was like, wait, what did you just say? Because I just had these dreams. How do you remember that? You know, it's spotty, but I remember us both coming to the conclusion separately.
Yeah, I remember both of us kind of coming to the conclusion separately. I don't remember how we got on the topic. I thought it was a text.
Maybe.
And I like jokingly said a text, and you're like, you know what? I actually just had this crazy
Okay,
dream.
maybe it was texting.
And I think we should start kind of sitting down and figuring out what that would look like.
Yeah, I was concerned because I was like, practically, like, can we pay? I didn't know how much a child and having a child costs and things like that. Like, can we practically afford this? What would that look like? What would being taken care of pregnancy, you know, planning the birth center, what would all that look like? So we literally sat all that down before getting pregnant.
Yeah, we planned it out. I come from a home where pregnancy was not planned. My grandma was like 15 or 16. My mom was 17, 18. I believe 17, 18, maybe 18, 19. My great grandparents were 15, 16 on both sides. So, like, none of them really planned anything out. So, this is where I wanted to break the cycle and not just have a child
just because
unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I was voted in middle school and high school most likely to have a kid first. And
oh gosh,
I am proud to say
you were 30.
I was 30 years
almost
old.
30.
Yeah. When I had my first child.
Yeah.
Or when she gave birth to our first child, our only child so far.
Yeah.
But when did we start going to church?
I was pregnant. I was, I think, a couple months pregnant.
I thought it was before that because we were going to foundations before you got pregnant.
I remember being super pregnant. I think it was
pregnant. November.
I remember being super pregnant at foundations.
Yeah.
That was the second
foundation.
Okay.
So I believe we actually started going November, and then the December stuff happened. We stuck together, kept doing our thing, and all of that. But it was funny because we were talking about going to church. We were like, you know, I was like, babe, I'd really like to start going to church. And you're like, you know, I'd be
open to it.
Mm-hmm. It's not something that I would like see myself like going in all the time and stuff like that, but I'm open to it. And not even a week later, we got a postcard in the mail from Radiant Church saying, hey, come check us out. And that postcard literally changed our lives.
I think so. Yeah.
So tell me about like what were some of the challenges that we faced in early parenthood the past 2 years, and how do you feel like God asked you to grow in them?
Oh man, that's a good question that I didn't think about. I wrote that question, but I didn't think about the answer of it because I was more so thinking about, I wanted to know your answer of it. But, you know, early parenthood is hard for everyone, and for most people, I shouldn't assume for everyone, for most people, because again, it was one of those things of dying to myself, really, of who I was before baby, who I am now after baby, all of these things. And, you know, but truthfully, the unhappiness that came with that at first, the unhappiness of, oh, my time is no longer my time, right? My time is no longer my time. And long story short, it was this like dying to myself, becoming of service, but then also finding new ways and like purging old ways of how Michael and I communicate. Because really, like, prior to having a baby, I was very like self-reliant in the sense that like I didn't have to have you do things for me. Like, say, after having the baby, like I physically couldn't do certain things,
Yep.
especially in the beginning. And like then I'm so busy with the baby and also with a toddler, like some things just I can't do, right? I couldn't do at the time. And you know, long story short, it was just this changing of asking for more help, getting on the same page about the practical stuff of parenthood, of like, how do we both feel like our needs are being met, and just stepping into the role of parents rather than boyfriend and girlfriend, right? Like, that's such a big, mother and father are so different than boyfriend and girlfriend.
We were
Boyfriend
married at that time, though, so husband and wife.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. We were married when we had Athena. Um, so husband and wife, like our only responsibilities are each other, but now we have this other thing that we have to be in service to, this other thing, our daughter, that we have to be in service to. And so that was really awakening. I love being a mother now. I love it, love it, love it. But it was a hard, same way of like, it was a hard transition to go into being someone who is like really committed in relationship. It was the same way of being really committed to motherhood, I would say.
Oh, for sure. I completely agree. There was a lot of adjustments and all of that. And then, yeah, to finish up this episode, what are you excited for now in our marriage?
Oh man, I feel like we've really, I'm not going to say that we won't have hard parts and obstacles in the future, but I feel like recently we've gone out of a hard season of that early parenthood. And now we're kind of in a season of, all right, let's create, let's build, let's have fun, let's optimize our systems in our home, let's enjoy our time together as a family in the evenings. It's like we're out of survival, really, and into, um, you know, this extra energy that we get to create with God, and we get to create things like this podcast or like our personal offers and our businesses, or we get to do things that we love to do more and things like that, and have a little bit more, like, I don't want to say freedom, but a little bit more, you know, what's the word?
Fun.
Fun. We do have a little bit
Is
more fun.
the part of the freedom equation.
Yeah. Well, and when we have another baby, I don't think it will be like a deep, dark, hard time because we've been through that,
Yeah.
Like, it will just be continued fun. I think, anyways, of course, rest and all those nice things. But I think that was just a time in our relationship, and now we're beyond it, and we've kind of like purged a lot of our old patterns, and now we're actually partners in life and partners in creating things. And through the whole process, God led us and kind of like gave us the things we needed, challenged us in the ways we needed to be challenged in order to create us into the people He's now like forged us into. What do you think about that?
No, I love it. I completely agree. And I mean, a lot of it was the preeclampsia was pretty scary. Um, I mean, just being a parent and making sure your child doesn't die the first year. Like, after you make it the first year, everything kind of goes a lot smoother. But it's like that first year, everything is just kind of stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, it was for us,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, because it was like a challenge. And I'm sure those of you early parents who are listening, or, if you've been through it, I'm curious to hear like what you think about that part. But yeah, I'm really just excited for what we create together. I'm excited to have like really firm foundations in our prayer life, in God, in following and being obedient to him, and I'm excited to see like where that takes us.
Love it. I'm excited as well. Or I'm excited as well. Probably couldn't hear me because I'm talking this way. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed episode 1 of Made New. We should have episode 2 dropped at the same time, just so that way you can come and binge my story next. But I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on YouTube, like the podcast, share it with somebody. Our mission here is just to change the world one episode at a time.
Yeah, so what we'll be talking about more in this podcast, in these podcast episodes, are marriage, mission, and modern day rebellion in, our world and our culture. So things on family, things on purpose, and things on,
God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and
all
all of that.
that goodness. So thank you all for listening and joining, and we hope to hear back from you, and we'll see you guys next time.